Okay, I am back, at least for a little bit. So, I'm going out of town next week, so there will be another big gap where I don't upload probably. But I want to finish off the Brotherhood decks before I get there. And then maybe I'll try out some Valyrian Steel and do some videos for that whenever I come back. Maybe that'll be the next thing. But one reason, in addition to just being busy, that I didn't upload again for a while was a new restricted list came out. And I kind of wanted to wait and make a few changes to the decks and let things settle around that new restricted list. So the new restricted list is mostly good, and I mostly like it. I don't think much of it needs much comment or explanation. Most of the things that got restricted obviously needed to go on the restricted list, and in my opinion, there are a few cards that still are not restricted that should be, which includes the 7-cost Victarion, because that's still a card that can win the game by itself, and the 6-cost version of Drogon for the same reason. I will say I'm not sure if they needed to restrict both Skagos and Mira Reed for Stark. I felt that one of those, and my preference probably would have been Mira Reed, probably would have been good to go on the restricted list. I'm not sure if it needed to be both, but all things being equal, I do lean on the side of, more things being restricted in terms of broken cards and breaking up decks that are just too stupid. So that's not a big deal. I am sad that they took Dorne off the restricted list. I don't understand why they did that. Dorne should be restricted for the same reason Trade Routes is restricted. Trade Routes is so far above curve compared to any other economy options, and Dorne is the same way with like card draw and card advantage. And the other thing that makes Dorne really strong is not only is it infinite card draw, but it's just so safe. I mean, there's entire factions that have no decent way to do anything to it. So if you're sitting across from a Martell deck and they set up with Dorne, it's such an enormous advantage for them, and it's in many cases almost impossible to overcome or for you to do anything about it. Like any type of board base or challenge deck that can't do anything to the Dorne on turn 1 that's going up against a lame out Martell deck, you're at such a huge disadvantage, and there's so little that you can do. You just have to sit there and wait until you lose, basically. So I don't understand why they took Dorne off. That was unfortunate. I have mixed feelings about Great Hall being restricted. I mostly wish that they had not restricted it, just because it's a card that enables character-based decks and enables decks winning by actually doing challenges. And restricting it shifts things more in favor of decks that weren't playing Great Hall anyways, which tend to be lame out decks or passive power decks. So that's unfortunate. I could sort of see the appeal in terms of like now with Great Hall and Trade Routes both being restricted. There's like I feel like I might be forced to make some more real plot choices. And I was like, oh well, maybe I'll just be using Great Halls and I won't be using Trade Routes, and then I can have some more variety of the plot decks instead of just doing, double Trade Routes in all these decks. But then when I looked through the plots again, what I realized, at least for the time being, and who knows about future decks, but for these at least, it's still most important and, in my opinion, best to just play economy plots. So for this Tyrell deck, it was double Trade Routes, and now it's just a Peace and Prosperity and a Noble Cause. Because having gold to play your cards is still more important than basically anything else that plots can provide. Certainly since Forced March also got restricted. I mean, you could make more of a real argument for Forced March, but especially now that I feel the game will be more focused on decks that don't do anything with characters, that don't do challenges, and that don't care about challenges, Forced March gets weaker anyways. So this is the Tyrell Brotherhood deck. What was I going to say? Oh yeah, just to finish off that restricted list discussion, because I realized that oh man, well, there's no more trade routes, it feels like it should introduce more variety in plots, but in reality, you're still just going to be picking whatever the best economy plots are. So on balance, I wish they hadn't restricted Great Hall. Makes the game shift more towards boring decks and unfun decks, in my opinion. And fortunately, though, the probably more balanced version of Trade Routes will be releasing with the Targaryen box. We did get, I think it was full spoilers for the Targaryen box, the ones that I saw. If it wasn't full, it was damn close. And one of the plots is called Loan from the Iron Bank. It's a 10 gold plot with decent stats otherwise. I think that's 5 reserve or something. With the downside that you get -1 gold while it's in your used pile. So every turn after that until your plot deck resets, you get -1 gold. And that means it's like a mid-game economy plot. Like, you don't necessarily want to start the game with it, because then you're going to have that -1 from the very first turn. But if you're trying to play it on turn 3 or 4, which are turns when you would normally play trade routes, like before in previous decks, then it's a lot more of an appealing option, because then you're only going to have the -1 for like 2 or 3 more turns after that, assuming that the game isn't over anyways. And that's getting towards like the late turns in the game, where having a -1 gold debuff is a lot more acceptable. Like, once you get into late game, it's a lot more likely that you'll have plenty of gold to like play out your hand at that point. So that'll be cool. I imagine that'll be sliding into a bunch of my decks, basically where trade routes was previously. And of course, also there may be more room now to just not play Great Hall and to still use trade routes. And I made at least one deck that I felt was a pretty good showcase of that, which was the Baratheon Faith Militant deck after the Baratheon expansion box came out, which was a like reasonably effective deck for what it was and could definitely win some games. And, I enjoyed playing it and everything. And it was a character and board-based deck, but it didn't play Great Halls. It just didn't play any big characters. And it still worked out. I mean, there could be some room for that. Although for the Faith Militant, it's unfortunate to take away Great Hall, because now cards like High Septon will be way less usable with that being the case, which the High Septon actually could be, it could have been more of a decent option for Faith Militant decks. I think the card maybe could be a bit underrated, but without Great Hall, it's going to be harder to play that. Anyways, enough about that. Onto the Tyrell Brotherhood deck. Like I said, instead of trade routes, we now have Noble Cause and Peace and Prosperity. And with At the Gates and Varys' Riddle, hopefully that'll be enough to keep us in good shape on money. We've got the Morghulis. I'm starting to lean towards not playing Morghulis anymore because of, like I said, the game's shifting towards lame out and passive power decks, and it's often negative to have Morghulis in those matchups. It's a plot that's only good if killing the other person's characters like actually matters, and in a lot of those matchups it doesn't. So it may go back to not playing any resets depending on how heavy the meta is on those types of decks. But for now, just to finish out the Brotherhood decks, it's still here. And then we've got Pulling the Strings, because I went down the list and I was like, well, what else am I really going to play? This plot's still pretty good. And we have 2 copies of Blessed by the Maiden for attachment control. Obviously, not completely reliable, but what can you do? This can definitely save you when Craven and Milk comes into play. So those are in the deck for that purpose instead of Confiscation. As far as the Brotherhood deck itself, I like this Tyrell Brotherhood deck. It's one of the more exciting ones because you have a bunch of like Tyrell tricks going on, I guess. You have the Lord Renly's Ride, which is going to piss people off. You have a lot of different stands with like Randall's Harley, the High Guarding Courtier, and the different strength buff abilities with Renly's Pavilion and Arbor Queen. And I've still got the Statue of Baelor. That still works. Got our Hollow Hills. The deck was like so packed full of stuff that I had to go down to 1 copy each of these strength buff locations, or Statue of Baelor just being a general stand location. Because I was like, man, I just don't have room. And I've also got a couple Arbor marketplaces. You could probably cut like Renly's Pavilion and play, I don't know what else, if you wanted to play 2 Statues of Baelor, something like that, 3 Renly's Rides. But I thought it was good enough to still make the cut. I do really like Arbor Queen because of all these neutral characters. Arbor Queen, I like to squeeze this in whenever I can. This is a really dank card. You could definitely argue that like you should just, instead of Renly's Pavilion, just play 2 Arbor Queens. I think that's definitely a possibility. As far as the deck itself, we've got all the neutral guys. Begging Brothers are a lot harder to play without trade routes, but they're still really good. We've got the Ghost, the Jaqen. I've determined that Jaqen Nagar is definitely better than the Most Devout, because what I found with the Most Devout is is quite frequent that their ability will not actually activate. I don't know if people are intentionally playing around it, or it's just less common than I thought it would be for people to actually marshal 2 characters in a turn. But I honestly found more often than not with the Most Devout that their ability just wouldn't activate, and then they're just a big body with 2 icons, and they're not getting the Statue of Baelor value. Plus, we only play 1 Statue of Baelor in this deck anyways. Jaqen, on the other hand, will really mess people up if there's like a actual board battle and he comes out and they can't, like, I don't know, milk him or whatever. He can definitely sort of break a board stalemate. Maester Balabar is fun with like strength manipulation and intimidate and things like that. He can mess with challenges well enough for a little 2-cost cheap guy. There's enough neutral cards in the deck. There's more neutral than Tyrell that Maester Gorman can be decent. Still not great, but playable. And you either go through and find non-loyal characters that aren't terrible, so he's one of them. Mance and Marjorie, Garland, basically all the same stuff that you would expect. I think I have Guardian Caretakers. Yeah, these are just efficient. And I've got like the efficient, non-loyal Tyrell cards that I could identify and pick out that still slot in here pretty well. They make a solid package around Randall's Harley, and then like these random cards that are just decent on their own, like Maester Balabar. So yeah, let's go and see what happens. See if we're going to get lamed out or not. Oh, this guy plays lame out 100% from what I remember. Oh no, he changed. Last I saw him, he was playing, I don't remember what it was. It was some type of like Martell deck maybe, but not this. This is Baratheon Prince. Baratheon Robert. Ooh. I could set up a bunch of 2s. 2, 2, 2, 2. Seems juicy. King's Landing, that's interesting. Don't play trading, bro. Don't trading me. I feel like he's going to play trading. Oh, that works. Lore Infiltrator. Also a bit of a weird card to be playing. Do I play Barrack? No, because I don't have the attachment removal, so if he milks them, that's really bad. 2 spare gold. That hurts, man. 1 gold away from playing one of these. That sucks. Might should have saved the bodyguard for Marjorie, but I think it's fine. Having 2 saves on a big guy is always still pretty good. So I can get double Intimidate here by standing the Poor Fellows with the High Guarding Courtier. We'll see if he does anything about that. Alright, well this looks like a pretty good turn. King's Landing and discards the God's Eye. This is very weird. King's Landing is weird, but understandable. The God's Eye is like super weird. Don't understand why you ever play the God's Eye. Why would you not defend that? Maybe he forgot that I gave the Poor Fellows Intimidate. He picked for me to draw a card with Poor Fellows. He didn't give him power. This guy's just doing all kinds of weird stuff. I'll definitely take that. I definitely think it's better for me to draw cards than gain power on that thing. It's too bad I didn't draw Mance Raider. Now I have to do Valar Morghulis because he will do the King in the North. I could try to... Ooh, discard Melisandre, really? I could try to get away with, like, Peace and Prosperity and go first. And intimidate him again. It's gotta be better to just Valar, though. If you can get away with Valaring when you know it's king in the north, yep, you should always do it. Freaking got him. Your Stannis does not have a bodyguard, sir. I'm not gonna let you do that. Well, that went better than I expected. Whoa, what happened to the screen there? You guys see that? Screen like totally flipped out right before I clicked out of the game. Oh, Stark Crossing. Okay. We get to go up against a post-restricted list Stark, a more fair Stark. Wyman Manderley, Ward, Fleabottom, Mira Reed, and Skagos are all restricted. Surely Stark is a fair faction now. Again, I think that's like one extra card beyond what needed to be restricted for them. I don't think they needed to restrict Skagos, because you can't use it with Mira Reed, Fleabottom, or you have to pick between Mira Reed, Fleabottom, and Wyman Manderley with Skagos. Like, you have to choose between 3 different of the cards there, and you can only pick one. That's already really harsh, in my opinion. I don't think that Skagos needed to be restricted on top of that. Now you can't even use Skagos with Fleabottom. You just can't use any other good cards that synergize with it besides Robb Stark, the Corset Robb. It's the only one left that you can use with Skagos. What is this deck? He's playing Wildling Horde and Manderley Knight and Ocean Roads. What is going on? Well, I guess I should have seen that coming with the Manderley Knight. But Varys' Riddle has the extra bonus in Brotherhood decks that it's 6 initiative. And going first is often pretty good for Brotherhood with the Intimidate. Definitely in a crossing matchup where you know that they're actually going to play characters. Should I have really played that Great Hall? I thought it was my only limited. I didn't see the Gate of the Gods. Probably fine. What else can I play here? I can go... So I can go Gorman for 3 and then play Poor Fellows. That's probably the right play. Let's look at the top card. Ooh, that's juicy. That's juicy. Is it better to play that or play Poor Fellows? I think I'll do this. So this is a Wildling deck. Start crossing Wildlings with winter cards, I have to say. Respect for playing weird stuff, dude, for sure. The weird stuff is coming out. Oh no, I messed up with Maester Gorman. Because I thought that, I forgot that his ability is non-Tyrell card only. It's not just the top card, it has to be non-Tyrell card. So I can't use this, that's a Tyrell event. Oopsie daisy. That's very unfortunate. Just give this guy stealth? Doesn't really matter what I give him. I'm outboarded here. Definitely should have played the Poor Fellows. That's a pretty unfortunate mistake there. Oh, that's another card that should be restricted that they didn't restrict, which is the King in the North. I think that should definitely be a restricted plot. I definitely think King in the North is stronger than Forced March. I mean, come on. I wonder if he's going to play March to the Wall. That would suck. Damn, bye-bye, Mance. Oh, goodness. I kind of expected something like that. The 2-cost Arya there. Ah, yes, we drew the milk. So we can survive. Harrenhal, seriously? Screw you, dude. Well, we're not going to be able to play Begging Brother. Fortunately, there's not that many super important targets for it. Oh yeah, what's the top card? Damn it, that's a Tyrell card. That sucks. Should probably have Old Town in this deck, shouldn't I? I'm not playing it because I wasn't playing, what are those things called? The Scheming Septons? You can't play them because they're loyal, obviously. Ooh. Should I play Hollow Hill Renly's Pavilion over Gate of the Gods? I mean, yeah, it's probably the right thing to do. I'll save one of them for Peace and Prosperity. So I can survive this turn by either killing the poor fellows and using the bodyguard, or I can kill both of these. Or no, I still would do that. Oh no, she's milked. Okay, so I could kill both of these, Gorman and poor fellows, and then Morgulis. And that's probably what I'll have to do. What character should I debuff on his side? Well, I guess I'll just debuff this and then buff Bronzeon. That would be the right thing to do. Well, that's unfortunate. But oh well. Damn, Hollow Hill. That sucks. I needed that. That's right, he's realizing if he does a power challenge, Bronzeon can stand from it. Yep, that makes sense. Now if he does returns to the fields, I lose. There's a strong chance that I lose no matter what, but that would be like guaranteed lose. I'll do military, so I try not to make it as obvious that I'm going to do Morgulus, but he probably knows. What will be funny is if he does confiscation and confiscates the milk off of Arya. That would be goofy. Got that insight, boy. I keep looking at my top card, but Gorman is dead now. That makes sense. This is the type of matchup where it hurts so much not having trade routes to push through this board aggression where he's trying to kill all my stuff. If I have trade routes, then I can get like 10 plus gold, and he can't stop me from having a board. But because I'm so much more choked on gold without trade routes, it makes it a lot more difficult. And that's what I was talking about, why I don't like Great Hall being restricted, because it makes this type of situation more likely and more difficult to counteract. Let's see here. Yeah, I don't think there's any point in marshaling any cards. So I could go like 1 and then what? Begging Brother for 3 and have 1 gold left? I guess I can go for that. No, if he's going to use Harrenhal, I'd rather have him spend it on Hightower Spy. Yeah, this is fine. That Mance pick with his intrigue claim is also very unlucky for me. Mance would be super good if I still had Great Halls. Yeah, I clearly should not have marshaled discarding Caretaker. Of course, there it goes. Losing Hollow Hill also sucks a lot. Like, I don't have any time to catch up now, because he's at 11 power. Yeah, I just have to do counting coppers, even though it's really bad. Oh, that's definitely game over. Look at that. This is why I don't like them restricting Great Hall, because this is what happens. At least it was a Stark Wildlings deck. Although I didn't really lose to the Stark or the Wildlings or anything. It was just him having March to the Wall and Harrenhal and that type of stuff, which you can always win a game against a character-based deck with that if you just have the right draws for it. I'm sure his restricted card was also Ward. So there you go.